On June 10, 1940, as Nazi Germany crushed France, Benito Mussolini entered the war. Seizing the moment, the Italian dictator declared war on Britain and France, aiming to stake his claim in the reshaping of Europe. In North Africa, his sights were set on a key British stronghold, Egypt. In 1936, after seizing Ethiopia, Mussolini declared the rebirth of the Roman Empire. He envisioned Italy not just defending its colonies, but expanding its reach across North Africa. By 1940, 250,000 Italian troops were stationed in Libya, but they faced a serious disadvantage. Their tanks were few, their weapons outdated, and their army ill-prepared for a modern war. In September 1940, after building up their forces and achieving a 6-to-1 numerical advantage over the British, the Italians invaded Egypt. They advanced 90 kilometers and neared the Nile Valley. But soon, the Italian army ran out of water, and nearly all their motor transport was reassigned to Albania. For 3 months, the Italian forces stood idle, hesitant to launch a further attack. This delay allowed the British to prepare for a counteroffensive. On December 9, 1940, British forces launched an attack. Within 3 days, they drove the Italians out of Egypt. Over the next 2 months, they advanced more than 800 kilometers and occupied eastern Libya. Around 130,000 Italian soldiers were taken prisoner. As the Italian army neared collapse, the German High Command decided to send the newly formed Afrika Korps. Created in February 1941, the Afrika Korps numbered around 100,000 troops. It would later be integrated with Italian units into the Panzer Group Africa. Hitler appointed Lieutenant General Erwin Rommel, who had recently distinguished himself in the French campaign, to command German forces in Libya. Upon arrival, Rommel was instructed to strengthen defenses, avoid major battles, and minimize losses. But Rommel had other plans. He immediately wrote to Berlin, "My first objective is to capture Cyrenaica and then seize northern Egypt and the Suez Canal." On April 1, 1941, Rommel's Afrika Korps launched a surprise attack. The British, unprepared for a sudden assault, began retreating along the entire front. Italian Libya was retaken, several cities were captured, and large weapon stockpiles seized. Triumphant, Rommel began wearing captured British tank goggles on his cap as a personal trophy. Italian commanders urged Rommel to halt and take up defensive positions. Instead, he ordered his troops to push through the desert to encircle British forces in eastern Libya. He gave his officers only 1 day to refuel. On April 4th, German columns entered the supposedly impassable desert. A month later, the Afrika Korps reached Tobruk, a key British stronghold in northern Cyrenaica. However, the attempt to take Tobruk by storm failed. The effects of the desert crossing took their toll. Rommel launched repeated assaults, but each was repelled with heavy losses. Realizing the cost, he halted the attacks and began a siege, hoping to exhaust the defenders. In mid-June 1941, the British launched Operation Battle Axe to break the siege and open the route from Egypt. But mechanical issues with new Crusader tanks, inexperienced crews, and stiff German resistance led to failure and the loss of around 90 tanks. The battle marked a tactical victory for Rommel. He showed strong leadership and skillful use of terrain and combined arms tactics. His successes impressed Berlin and earned him a nickname from the British, the Desert Fox. Encouraged by his success, Rommel prepared to advance on Cairo. But after June 22, 1941, when Germany launched its invasion of the Soviet Union, the North African front lost strategic priority. The Afrika Korps stopped receiving reinforcements. Meanwhile, after setbacks in North Africa, Greece, and Crete, the British reorganized. In September, the 8th Army was formed and reinforced with 700 tanks. On November 18th, the British launched Operation Crusader with superior numbers in tanks and aircraft, aiming to drive Axis forces from Libya and secure the Suez Canal. 10 days into the British offensive, the siege of Tobruk was broken. The garrison joined the offensive. Rommel had underestimated British preparations. While he conducted a risky raid into the British rear, Tobruk was retaken. German and Italian forces became separated. Facing growing pressure, Rommel was forced to retreat west to fortified positions. By mid-December, the British besieged another key port, Bardia. A month later, the Italian garrison surrendered. In early 1942, British forces pushed further, regaining all of Cyrenaica and moving the front 800 kilometers from the Suez Canal. Rommel appeared defeated. The British celebrated and prepared to eliminate Axis forces in Tripolitania. But, like the Italians before them, they faced major supply issues due to overextended lines and poor infrastructure. Benghazi port was inoperable, so supplies had to go through Tobruk. German forces in North Africa began receiving reinforcements. Tanks, artillery, and ammunition arrived in Tripoli. With improved strength, Rommel decided to go on the offensive. On January 21, 1942, he sent 3 armored columns toward Ajdabiya for reconnaissance. Finding minimal resistance, this turned into a full-scale offensive. On January 28th, Rommel's tanks entered Benghazi. 4 days later, the British abandoned Derna. The 8th Army fell back to the Gazala line, which stretched from the coast to the old Turkish fortress of Bir Hakeim. Both sides prepared for battle, strengthening their supply routes. The British began re-equipping units with American-made Grant tanks with 75mm guns, able to match the German Panzer IV. Germany, on the other hand, lacked resources for a full push to Cairo. Still, Rommel decided to gamble. By late spring 1942, he finalized Operation Theseus, a plan to bypass Bir Hakeim and flank the British from the south, while 2 Italian corps attacked in the north as a diversion. On May 26, 1942, the Italians launched their assault. Truck convoys in the north mimicked tank deployments, while the Afrika Korps prepared to strike in the south. At 9 p.m., Rommel's tanks moved to encircle Bir Hakeim, but his plan soon ran into problems. The Italians got bogged down in heavy fighting south of the fortress, defended by the Free French 1st Brigade and the British 7th Armored Division. Meanwhile, German forces bypassed the stronghold and pushed north, but were met with unexpected British tank resistance. Despite advancing nearly 40 kilometers, German units suffered heavy losses, especially when facing American-made Grant tanks. By the end of the day, the Afrika Korps had lost a third of its tanks. Ammunition was running low, and fuel was nearly gone. They were cut off from their supply bases and risked being encircled. Yet Rommel pressed on. Luftwaffe support helped stabilize the situation and allowed the Germans to resume the offensive. German troops began isolating British positions along the Gazala line. At Bir Hakeim, Free French troops under General Koenig were surrounded. Even after British forces withdrew, the French held out under siege for 16 days. On June 5th, a British counterattack failed. The fort came under intense German artillery and air bombardment. On June 9th, Koenig received the evacuation order. The next morning, after heavy shelling and airstrikes by Ju-87 bombers, the Germans stormed the fort. The French repelled the assault, but were running out of ammunition. That night, the garrison began its evacuation. By June 11, 1942, Rommel controlled the front from El Gazala to Bir Hakeim. German forces outmatched the British in maneuverability and force concentration, while the British artillery was scattered and tanks operated without infantry support. On June 12th, German forces crushed the British at Knightsbridge. A failed British counterattack on June 13th resulted in more losses. By the end of the day, Knightsbridge was surrounded, and its defenders retreated to Tobruk. On June 14th, General Neil Ritchie received permission to withdraw to defensive lines near El Alamein. Rommel advanced quickly. By June 18th, Tobruk was surrounded. On June 20th, the final assault began, supported by artillery and the Luftwaffe. Engineers cleared paths through anti-tank ditches. German tanks captured the airfield and reached the port that evening. Despite large British stockpiles of equipment and supplies, the garrison surrendered on June 21st. 33,000 troops were taken prisoner. This victory was widely publicized in Germany and Italy. Rommel became a national hero. On June 22, 1942, Hitler promoted him to field marshal. In the Battle of Gazala, the British suffered a major defeat. The Axis broke through the Gazala line, took Tobruk, and advanced nearly 600 kilometers. German tanks reached El Alamein, Britain's last line of defense before the Nile Delta and the Suez Canal.